So I'd been wanting to get back into doing some metalworking. When I was younger, I got to do some stick welding when I worked on the pipeline, and I thought I'd get back into trying to incorporate some of that metalworking and some of the woodworking I've been doing. I had to pick up some tools to do that, so I picked up this metal cutting bandsaw. It's a Harbor Freight, older Harbor Freight model from a guy off of Craigslist, and then also picked up a welder from my dad. It's a Miller 130. I was using that to put this top table together. Here I'm cutting the 45-degree miters for the top part of this little table.
Here's what the table looks like so far. I lost some footage of welding it together, but I welded on these square pieces of tubing to the upper frame. The upper frame I mitered at 45-degree angles, and then to close up some of the gaps I welded along the edges, and then I just used a abrasive wheel to clean it up a little bit. And I think for the look of this, I just cleaned it up with the abrasive wheel. It's one of those Tiger wheels. Got a lot of the rust off of it, but I think I'm going to clear coat it. And some of the welds turned out pretty nice. Here's one of my better welds right here. That turned out a little bit better than some of the others. So what I'm going to do is put pallet wood, or we're making this kind of look into a rustic industrial kind of look. So I'm going to put some pallet wood on the top, and I'm going to do that next. I think what I'll have to do is drill some holes along the sides. All four sides. I think I'm going to drill a hole on all four sides. That way I can have a screw coming up and into the top.
It seems like I've come across a lot of old barnwood, and I've been collecting a bunch. I have some oak panels here that I thought might be good for this project because they have a nice natural edge on them, and they seem to be just about the right width where I could get two pieces to fit on top of this table. My idea originally was to keep the table kind of in a rough look and keep the old weathered barnwood look with the saw marks, as you can see here, still intact. The problem was the wood wasn't the same thickness throughout, and it was cupped. So I was going to have to do some work to it anyway to get it jointed. And after I talked to my wife a little bit about it, she thought maybe it would be a good contrast to have the top look cleaner and the bottom look more of a rough industrial look. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up joining it and also making it flat on one side on the joiner and running it through the planer. So I had two panels that I could then glue up. I didn't use biscuits here, I just glued them right together. And after it was done, it looked pretty nice. Nice, smooth, uniform thickness. I rounded the corners over a little bit to make sure it could fit in there. And I really liked the way it contrasted with the rough legs and the finished top. Now we're in the home stretch here. I'm just sanding the surface here, getting rid of any marks from the glue that were left as it dried. And then to finish it off, we're going to use some Danish oil on this. And I like to keep rags, or these are paper towels soaked in old Danish oil in a glass jar. And that keeps it safe from spontaneously combusting in your shop somewhere. You got to make sure you're not just throwing these rags in the trash can. From what I've heard, they can catch on fire, and people's shops have caught on fire from boiled linseed oil soaked rags. or Danish oil type finishes, oil finishes like this. You got to watch out for that. And it really brought out the oak grain. Looks really nice. And it still has a weathered look here. And I have some live edge still left. These were really old oak planks that came from a barn somewhere here in Berks County in Pennsylvania. Like most people, I have tons of old screws and bolts and little parts, and I have these little part containers. Some I've picked up from flea markets and yard sales, and I'm constantly looking for little pieces that I find in there, and I don't know, it gives me a good feeling to reuse some of these parts that have been in there. It could be older than I am, that have been sitting there just waiting to be used someday. When it came to putting in the screws to attach the top and make sure that was secure, I ended up only using the holes that I drilled on the longest sides, because as it turns out, as you can kind of see here on the short ends, where I drilled those holes in the middle, kind of lined up with the joint of the panel, and I didn't want to accidentally split that apart, even though it didn't line up exactly. I didn't feel a need to do the screws in there, and actually was very solid just with the two on the sides here. And that pretty much does it. Turned out really nice. It's hard to pick up the actual color from the camera here. It's looking a little bit whitish and bluish from the lighting. But I posted some pictures on Instagram that came out a lot nicer. You could see more of a natural color to it. I'll put one at the end of the video here.